Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction of the Oakland Raiders at the San Diego Chargers in their Week 7 matchup played October 25th, 2015 as these two AFC West rivals went at it. And we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. So starting off in the first quarter, Phillip Rivers was intercepted by Malcolm Smith, and that would set up the Raiders' first score of the game, a 1-yard touchdown run by Latavius Murray, just a little over 2 minutes into this game, and Janikowski hit the extra point, and it was 7-0 Oakland over San Diego. Then with about 5.5 minutes still left in the first, Janikowski hit a 29-yard field goal, and it was 10-0 Raiders over the Chargers. Josh Lambo would hit a 40-yard field goal with a little over a minute still left in the first to make it 10-3. It's the Chargers trailed by 7. So that was the score after 1 quarter of play. Then in the second quarter, Oakland goes off as Derek Carr hits Clive Walford for a 23-yard touchdown pass. Janikowski adds the extra point. It was 17-3 as the Raiders extended their lead to 14. Then with about 9.5 minutes still left in the second quarter, Janikowski hit a 32-yard field goal to make it 20-3 as the Raiders were now up by 17. Then with a little less than 5 minutes left before halftime, Janikowski hits a 31-yard field goal, and it was now a 20-point lead for the Raiders with the score 23-3. Then with just a minute left before halftime, Derek Carr airs it out for Amari Cooper, who makes the catch jumping up in the air, and a 52-yard touchdown with an extra point by Janikowski. It was 30-3 as the Raiders were now up by 27 points. Josh Lambo would hit his second field goal of the game on the final play of the first half, a 44-yard field goal, and it was 30-6 as this game went to intermission. So the Raiders up by 24 points at halftime. Then in the third quarter, they added another 7 as Derek Carr hit Michael Crabtree for a 25-yard touchdown. With about 11 minutes still left in the third, Janikowski hits the extra point, and it was 37-6 as the Raiders were now up by 31 points. So that was the score after 3 quarters of play. And then in the fourth quarter, in garbage time, that's when the Chargers shine. Phillip Rivers would lead the Chargers to 23 points as he threw 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Starting off with 13 minutes left in the game, he'd go to Ladarius Green for a 31-yard touchdown. The extra point by Lambo made it 37-13. Then with 6 minutes left, he hit Danny Woodhead for an 8-yard touchdown, and then they went for 2. They would convert the 2-point conversion as he went back to Ladarius Green, who he'd thrown the touchdown to earlier in the quarter, and it was now 37-21. Then with 6 seconds left, he goes back to Danny Woodhead for a 6-yard touchdown pass, and they converted another 2-point conversion. Again, this one Rivers to Ladarius Green, and it was now 37-29 as it was now an 8-point game, but just 6 seconds left. They went for an onside kick, and they did not recover. It didn't matter anyway. Well, I guess one play they might have had a Hail Mary miracle, but the Raiders hold on to win this one, 37-29. As the Chargers always make it interesting, even when they're getting blown out. They always come back in that fourth quarter as Rivers just keeps airing it out, and he just doesn't give up. But the Raiders win it, and they're now 3-3 on the year, even at 500. 2-1 on the road, so they have a winning record away from Oakland, and the Chargers now fall to 2-5. They're 2-2 at home this year, and so the Raiders secure second place in the West. They still trail the Broncos by 3 games. The Broncos, of course, had a bye week this week, and San Diego is now tied for third at 2-5, as the Chiefs are now 2-5 as well with their victory over the Steelers earlier in the day. And in this game, Derek Carr, 24 for 31, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 2 carries for 3 yards. Phillip Rivers, 38 for 58. It's like, is that the only play they have? Is throw the ball. But 336 yards for Rivers, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. On the ground, Latavius Murray for the Raiders, 15 carries for 85 yards, including a touchdown. For the Chargers, their leading rusher, Brandon Oliver, 9 carries for 35 yards. Melvin Gordon had 7 carries for 29 yards, and Danny Woodhead, 5 carries for 26 yards. Woodhead also had 11 receptions for 75 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, giving him 101 total yards on the game. Keenan Allen had 9 receptions for 89 yards. And for the Raiders, Amari Cooper, 5 receptions for 133 yards. Crabtree had 6 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. Walford, 2 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. We look at the kickers. Lambo, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra points. And Sebastian Janikowski, 3 field goals, 3 for 3, 4 for 4 on the extra points. He was perfect in this game, as he can hit those field goals for sure. He's got quite the leg. And then we look at the defense. The former Super Bowl MVP Malcolm Smith with 11 tackles, 1 sack, and an interception, coming up big time for the Raiders. Hayden had an interception and a forced fumble as well as 10 tackles. And for the Chargers, Flowers had a sack. Then we look at the team stats: 28 first downs for San Diego, 19 first downs for Oakland. On third down, the Chargers 8 of 16 converted, 50% conversion rate. 5 of 12 for Oakland, just 41%. And then we look at the total net yards: 417 for San Diego, 412 for Oakland. Net rushing yards: 130 for the Raiders, 90 for the Chargers. Net passing yards: 327 for San Diego, as Rivers was sacked once for a loss of 9 yards. 282 netted for Oakland. Carr sacked once for a loss of 7 yards. Then we look at the penalties, and there was a lot of them in this game. These two teams combined for 23 penalties. The Raiders historically are one of the most penalized teams in football throughout the years, and in this game they lived up to their reputation. Is a reputation that's kind of, from years past. I mean, it goes back to the 70s, but 14 penalties for the Raiders in this game, 136 penalty yards, and they still won. 9 penalties for San Diego and 86 penalty yards. The San Diego Chargers did fumble the ball once, but they recovered it, and the Raiders, no fumbles. We look at the red zone. The Raiders just 1 for 4, only 25% in the red zone. The Chargers 2 for 2, 100% in the red zone. Usually if you're 100% in the red zone, you're going to win. Of course, they only got there twice, and that was after they were already getting spanked. But time of possession, 30 minutes, 49 seconds for Oakland, 29 minutes, 11 seconds for San Diego. And really, in this game, the Raiders were just dominating this game. It was all Oakland. We saw, of course, in that second quarter, they scored 20 straight points to go up 30-3. But then they let the Chargers, climb back into this one. In the end, I don't know if you even really call it climbing back into it, because, they scored 23 points in the fourth quarter. But they still, that last touchdown comes with just 6 seconds left. Is that really climbing back into it? I mean, not really. That's the thing is, it really, it was all Raiders in this game. But San Diego, as they are apt to do, they always, make it interesting at the end. They always make it come down to the very end. Even when they're getting spanked, as I said earlier, they just don't give up. And you got to respect a team that never gives up. And that's the thing, you got to like about Phillip Rivers, is that he will just keep throwing that rock. And he is one of the best at throwing it. And if they actually had a team around him, maybe the Chargers would be good. But their offensive line is just horrendous. And that forces him to have to make quick throws, quick decisions. And the Raiders, Derek Carr continuing to shine here in 2015. It's got the Raiders at 3-3. Their defense is playing pretty good. At least they were in the first half, and even throughout the first 3 quarters, allowing only 6 points. And they kept them out of the end zone until that fourth quarter. Of course, at that point, they're just playing prevent. It's garbage time, and they let up those 3 touchdowns in the fourth, which were kind of, they were kind of gimmies, So the Raiders, I thought they played pretty good on defense. I thought they did a really good job. I think they actually have a lot of potential on this team. It'd be interesting to see what they can do moving forward. We're reaching the halfway point. Next week is week 8. They're at 500 right now, so they definitely are in contention for a possible wild card bid here in 2015, and the future does look bright for the Raiders, moving forward. So they've got a lot of talent. Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, just to name a couple. Also Murray, and that defense, the way they're playing, they're not bad. They're having a pretty good year there, of course. The Broncos keep winning games somehow, some way. Otherwise, maybe we'd be talking about the Raiders potentially making a run for the title in this AFC West. If the Broncos had lost a couple of those games that they just somehow found a way to win, and if they were at 4-2, well, then the Raiders would only be a game out. But if ifs and nuts were, if ifs and buts were fruits and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, right? But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.